He paid me for 3 days of shootings, but instead he tied me up with tape, beat me with an electric cable, choked me with plastic bags, and
My name is Priya Sharma. I'm 27 now, and I was in that life for about 2.5 years. Back then, before any of this, I was just trying to figure out how to stand on my own 2 feet in Mumbai. I had come from this tiny village in Rajasthan when I was 15, sent by my family to stay with my aunt and work so I could help save for my younger sister's dowry. It was supposed to be temporary, you know? Get some money, send it home, maybe learn a skill. But nothing ever feels temporary when you're that young and away from everything you know. I worked in this little clothing store in Andheri, the kind squeezed between a tea stall and a repair shop. I'd open up in the morning, sweep the floor, fold saris and salwar suits all day, and try to convince aunties that the colors looked good on them even when they didn't. The pay was terrible, barely enough to eat and send a little back home, but I liked the rhythm of it. I'd chat with the other girls working there, share homemade rotis at lunch, and laugh about the customers who haggled over 20 rupees like it was a fortune. After closing, I'd walk back to my aunt's place, maybe stop for a vada pav if I had a few extra coins. Small things like that kept me going. Evenings were when I'd let myself dream a little. I'd sit on the tiny balcony with my old magazines that I'd collected, practicing English words under my breath. I wanted to be a teacher someday. Not some fancy one, just someone who could stand in front of kids and make them feel seen. I used to imagine a classroom with bright charts on the walls and little girls raising their hands. It felt possible back then, like if I just worked hard enough and stayed out of trouble, I could build something different from what my mother had. My aunt was good to me at first. She'd make chai for us in the morning and ask about my day. She was the only person in the city I really trusted. I'd tell her how much I missed the smell of the fields after rain back home, but how I never wanted to go back to that life of just waiting to get married off. She would nod and say I was smart for wanting more. That meant everything to me because at home, things had already gone wrong years earlier. I don't like talking about it much, but when I was 14, at my cousin's wedding, my uncle did something no girl should ever have to go through. The family found out, and instead of protecting me, they acted like I had brought shame on everyone. My father even sold some land to keep it quiet. After that, it felt like I was already carrying this weight that nobody wanted to acknowledge. So coming to Mumbai was my chance to breathe again. I started doing a few small modeling jobs around that time, nothing big. Just local ads for clothes or some beauty cream. A photographer friend of my aunt's would call me in sometimes because I had that traditional look they liked for certain campaigns. I'd get paid a little extra, buy myself a new dupatta, or send more money home. It made me feel pretty and capable, like maybe I could actually make it. I'd practice poses in the mirror after work, laughing at myself when I looked ridiculous, but excited too. For the first time, I felt like I had some control over my future. I was 20 when things started shifting. The store job was getting harder, the hours longer, and the money still wasn't enough. My mother got sick around then, really sick, and the calls from home became more desperate. I was scared of ending up like her, stuck in a life where you just endure everything. I wanted to be independent so bad. I used to walk through the nicer parts of Mumbai sometimes on my day off, looking at the women in offices with their laptops and confidence, and think, why not me? Life wasn't perfect, though. There were nights I'd lie awake wondering if I was fooling myself. The city was loud and overwhelming, and sometimes the way men looked at me on the street made my skin crawl, reminding me of things I tried to forget. But I pushed it down. I had my routines, my small dreams, and my aunt's encouragement. I thought that was enough to keep me safe. I really believed I could outrun the past if I just kept moving forward. I had no idea how quickly everything could change. Then my mom's health really started going downhill. At first, it was just calls saying she was tired all the time, losing weight, that kind of thing. I'd send whatever extra I could from my paycheck, but the store wages barely covered my own room and food. The modeling gigs helped a little, but they were so irregular. One month I'd get a small job and feel hopeful. The next 2 months, nothing. The bills from home kept coming. Hospital visits, medicines, tests. My father would call, his voice tight, telling me how much they needed. I could hear the pressure in every word, like I was the only one who could fix it. I'd sit on my bed after those calls, staring at the cracked wall, calculating and recalculating how much I had and how much they needed. It never added up. Work at the store got more exhausting too. The owner started cutting hours for some of us, saying business was slow. I'd stand there for 10 hours, folding clothes, smiling at customers even when my feet were killing me and my mind was somewhere else. Some nights I'd get home so drained I'd just eat a bowl of rice and sleep without even changing my clothes. My aunt noticed I was quieter. At first she'd ask if I was okay, bring me extra food. But after a while, she started sounding frustrated. "You can't keep sending everything home, Priya. You have to think about yourself too." I knew she was right, but how do you stop when your mom is sick? The loneliness hit me harder during that time. I'd see other girls my age on the streets or in the market, laughing with friends or talking on their phones about boyfriends and plans. I didn't have any of that. My old friends from the village had all gotten married already. And here I was, 20 years old, still trying to hold everything together by myself. Sometimes after work, I'd walk a longer way home just to be around people for a little longer. I'd watch the streetlights come on and wonder if this was really all there was going to be. Then the modeling work started drying up too. The photographer who used to call me said the brands were going for younger girls or different looks. I tried going to a couple other studios, but they'd look me up and down and say they'd call, and they never did. One guy was a little too friendly, asking me to stay late for extra shots. I left quickly and never went back. Small things like that started making me more nervous about everything. Money got so tight I had to skip meals some days. I'd tell myself it was temporary, that things would turn around. But the calls from home got more frequent and more desperate. My sister needed school fees. The doctor wanted another round of treatment. I remember one night my aunt came into my room while I was counting out the little cash I had left. She sat down and said, "There are other ways to make money, Priya. Faster ways. You have a nice face and figure. Some clients just want private videos, nothing too much. Just posing, like modeling, but better pay." I told her no at first. It sounded off. But the words stayed in my head because the pressure was building every single day. The fear of having to go back to the village empty-handed, of watching my mom get worse while I folded clothes for pennies, of becoming exactly what everyone expected me to be. I started lying awake thinking about it more and more, telling myself I was just considering options. I wasn't ready to do anything, but I could feel the ground shifting under me. Everything that had felt manageable before suddenly felt like it was slipping away, piece by piece. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't keep going like this much longer. I kept telling myself no for weeks. Every time my aunt brought it up, I'd shake my head and say I wasn't that kind of girl. I'd find another way. I started waking up even earlier to look for different jobs. I asked around at other stores, tried a couple of call centers, even stood in line for hours at a factory that was hiring packers. Nothing worked out. Either they wanted experience I didn't have, or they paid even less than the clothing store, or the hours made it impossible to send money home on time. The hospital bills kept piling up. My mom sounded weaker on the phone each time. She tried to hide it, saying, "Don't worry, Beta," but I could hear the pain in her voice. My father stopped calling as much, which somehow made it worse. I knew what that silence meant. One night I counted every rupee I had hidden in my things. It wasn't enough for even one more round of her treatment. I sat there on the floor with the money in my lap and just cried quietly so my aunt wouldn't hear. I tried cutting back more. Stopped eating anything extra, walked instead of taking the bus, sold a couple of my nicer clothes to a neighbor. For a short time, I thought maybe it would be enough if I just pushed harder. But it wasn't. The fear of losing my mom while I was too far away to help started eating at me. And underneath that was this deeper fear that if things got bad enough, my family would pull me back to the village and marry me off to whoever would take me, just to be done with the burden. My aunt didn't push hard. She'd just mention it casually sometimes, like, "That guy I know is still looking for girls who can pose nicely. Pays in one day what you make in a month." I'd get angry at first, tell her I wasn't desperate enough for that. But the truth was, I was getting desperate. The shame of even thinking about it made my stomach turn. I wasn't raised to be that way. My whole life I'd been taught that a girl's body and reputation were the only things she really had. And yet here I was, considering it because the alternative felt like watching my family fall apart. I delayed as long as I could. Another 2 weeks of barely sleeping, stomach in knots, pretending at work like everything was fine. I even went back to one of the modeling studios and basically begged for any job, even unpaid. The guy there looked at me with this pity that made me feel smaller than ever. When I got home that evening, my aunt was waiting with tea. She didn't say much, just that the offer was still there, and it was, "Just videos, Priya. You're already doing modeling." This is the same thing, but private. I sat there for a long time, turning the cup in my hands. I thought about my mom, about the life I wanted, about how tired I was of struggling every single day. The lie started forming in my head. I could do this and still be me. I'd just be acting, pretending. It wasn't really me. It was just for the money, just until my mom got better. Finally, I looked up at my aunt and said yes, quietly. My voice barely worked. I said yes. My aunt arranged everything. She told me it would be simple, just like the modeling, but in a private apartment. The next evening, she put me in an auto and gave the driver the address. My hands were shaking the whole ride. We pulled up to this mid-range building in Bandra, the kind with a small lobby and a sleepy security guard who barely looked up. I took the elevator to the 7th floor, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. A middle-aged man opened the door. He was maybe 45, wearing a nice shirt and jeans, smelled like expensive cologne. He smiled politely, like we were meeting for coffee. "Come in, Priya. Your aunt told me about you." The apartment was modern, with big windows looking over the city lights, a leather couch, and a camera set up on a tripod in the living room. It looked professional enough that I almost relaxed for a second. He offered me water, and we sat down. There was this long silence while he explained the shoot. He said it was for private clients who liked natural, elegant girls. He'd pay up front, cash, no names, no complications. He kept his voice calm and businesslike, which somehow made it feel more surreal. I nodded along, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. My mouth felt dry no matter how much water I drank. He showed me the bedroom, dim lights already on, bed made with white sheets. There was some small talk about my village, how long I'd been in Mumbai, nothing deep. Then he said we should start. I remember standing there awkwardly, not sure where to look. The moments after that are blurry in a way I still can't explain. It happened. I went through it, trying to keep my mind somewhere else, counting minutes in my head. Afterward, he was quiet. He got dressed, went to the living room, and counted out the money on the table. It was more than I'd made in 3 months at the store. He handed it to me without any big ceremony and said, "You did good. We can do this again if you want." I took the cash, folded it tight in my bag, and left without saying much. The elevator ride down felt endless. The same security guard was still half asleep at his desk. Outside, the night air hit me, and I felt this strange numbness. I caught another auto back to my aunt's place, staring out at the passing traffic and street vendors closing up. Everything looked the same as always, but I felt different. Like something important had shifted inside me and I couldn't quite name it yet. I just kept thinking, this is how it starts. At first, I couldn't believe the money. After that first night, I paid for my mom's next treatment round in cash. Just like that. No more begging or borrowing. My aunt smiled and said I was smart for listening to her. Within a couple months, I had cleared most of the hospital debts. I moved into a better apartment, a small one-bedroom in a nicer building with actual hot water and a fridge that worked. I bought clothes that didn't come from the market, soft fabrics, things that made me feel put together. Clients started calling more regularly. Some were businessmen in their 40s and 50s, polite on the surface. One guy took me to this fancy restaurant in Lower Parel, where the waiters spoke in whispers, and the bill was more than my old monthly salary. I sat there in a new dress he'd bought me, eating food I couldn't even pronounce, listening to him talk about his deals in Dubai. Another time, a client flew me to Goa for the weekend. Business class. I'd never been on a plane before. I remember looking out the window thinking, this can't be real. This is my life now. There were gifts too. Designer bags, gold earrings, a watch once. One man paid my rent for 6 months up front just because he liked how I listened. They'd tell me things, secrets about their marriages, their businesses, the kind of stuff powerful people probably shouldn't share. I learned the rules fast. Smile, don't ask too many questions, be available when they want. Some requests were weird, but not sexual. One guy just wanted me to sit with him in his hotel suite while he worked on his laptop all night. Paid full rate for basically nothing. Another had me read English newspapers out loud because it helped him relax. Everything started feeling normal faster than I expected. I'd wake up in my new place, order food from apps I used to only look at, and check my phone for the next booking. The fear from the beginning faded into the background. I told myself I was in control. I was choosing this. I was helping my family. My sister got new school books and clothes. My mom's treatment continued. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of the future every single day. But there were moments that stuck with me. Like the night a client casually mentioned how he destroyed a competitor's reputation over dinner, laughing about it. Or the time I waited in a luxury hotel lobby watching these wealthy wives walk by, wondering if they knew where their husbands were. Once a guy got angry over something small, and I saw a flash of who he really was behind the nice suits and smiles. I brushed it off, told myself it was just one bad night. I stopped talking to the girls from the clothing store. My old life felt too far away. Even calls home became shorter. I'd send money and say everything was fine, that I got a better job in events management. The two worlds stopped feeling separate. This was just my life now. Booking appointments, getting ready, showing up, collecting the cash, going home. It had become completely normal. And that was probably the scariest part. The first year wasn't so bad. I still had moments where I felt like I was playing a role and could step out whenever I wanted. But after a while, the days started blending together. I'd sleep most of the morning, wake up in the afternoon, get ready, and go out at night. Weekends stopped meaning anything. I missed my sister's birthday because I had a booking in Pune. I sent her an expensive gift instead and told her work was crazy. The excuses came easier every time. Clients changed too. At the beginning, a lot of them were just lonely businessmen who wanted company and conversation. But more and more, they wanted things their way, exactly their way. One regular guy, a guy in his 50s who worked in imports, started texting me at all hours, expecting me to drop everything. If I said I was tired, he'd get quiet, and the next time he'd be a little colder, tip a little less. I learned to say yes, even when I didn't want to. I got really good at reading people fast. Walking into a hotel room, I could tell in the first 30 seconds what kind of night it was going to be. Some were polite, almost sweet. One guy from Delhi used to bring me sweets from his hometown and talk about his daughter my age. He made me feel almost human. But then there were the others. The ones who wanted me to act a certain way, say specific things, pretend I was someone else. I started keeping different names in my head. Sometimes I was Priya, sometimes Neha, sometimes whatever they wanted. It got confusing after a while. I'd catch myself almost using the wrong name with my aunt. The secrecy wore on me. I couldn't tell anyone what I was really doing. Old friends from the store tried reaching out a few times, but I made excuses until they stopped calling. My family thought I had some good office job with flexible hours. I'd visit home once in a while, smile through the questions, and leave as soon as I could. The lying became automatic. I had fake stories ready about coworkers and projects. I'd delete messages and call logs every single night before bed like it was brushing my teeth. Money kept me there. I was sending more home than ever. My mom's treatment was going better. My sister was studying. But the cost was creeping in. I stopped enjoying the nice restaurants. The food tasted the same after a while. Hotel rooms started looking identical, whether they were 5-star or not. I'd check the exits without thinking, always sit with my back to the wall, keep my bag close. Little habits I didn't even notice I was doing. There was this one client who liked long conversations about philosophy and life. He'd pay double just to talk for hours and then barely touch me. Another guy wanted me to cry during the night, said it helped him feel something. I learned how to make myself tear up on command. I hated it, but I did it. Over time, I stopped feeling shocked by requests like that. I'd just adjust and move on. The numbness settled in slowly. I remember one morning looking at my reflection after a long night and realizing I hadn't really laughed in months. Not a real laugh. My face looked the same, but my eyes were different. I started forgetting what day it was. Tuesday or Saturday, it didn't matter. My body started feeling like it belonged to other people more than to me. I'd zone out during bookings, thinking about random things like what to eat later or whether I needed to buy shampoo. Friends were gone. Real friends. I had girls in the same line of work I'd see sometimes, but we didn't talk deep. Just surface stuff, complaints about difficult clients, tips on which hotels were safe. It was lonely in a way I can't really explain. Surrounded by people, expensive places, money in my bag, but completely alone. One night I came home from a booking and found a stack of cash on my table from the last few days. I should have felt something, but I just counted it, put most of it in an envelope for home, and went to sleep. No excitement anymore. No disgust either. Just routine. I caught myself thinking, this is just what I do now. Even my relationship with my aunt changed. She was getting her cut, living better too. We didn't talk like before. She'd ask how work was, and I'd say, fine, and that was it. The girl who used to dream about teaching, who practiced English from old magazines, felt further and further away. I still sent money, still helped my family, but I was losing pieces of myself I didn't know how to get back. By the end of the second year, I had almost completely accepted it. I had a nice apartment, nice clothes, a routine that paid the bills and more. I could go days without thinking about the village or the girl I used to be. This was my life. Not the one I planned, but the one I had. And most days I didn't even fight it anymore. This one regular client, a regular-looking businessman in his late 40s, had booked me for 3 full days. He said it was for private videos and photos in a rented apartment. He paid a lot up front, more than I'd ever made for that many days. It seemed like easy money. I'd been with him before, and he was always polite, a little quiet, nothing too strange. So I ignored the small voice in my head and went. The apartment was in a quiet part of town, nice, but not flashy. He greeted me at the door with a smile, took my bag, and showed me around. Everything looked normal at first. He had the camera set up, some lights, snacks on the table. We had dinner, talked about normal stuff. But after the first night, things felt off. He wanted me to stay in certain positions for a long time, longer than usual. He started closing the curtains, turning the lights down lower. By the second day, the shoot changed. He brought out duct tape, said it was for the video concept. I hesitated, but he reminded me how much he'd paid and how good it had been so far. I let him. Then it got worse. The beatings with the electric cables started. Not playful. Real. He'd hit me and watch my reaction, like that was the point. When I cried or screamed, he'd turn on loud music so no one could hear. He used plastic bags, holding them over my face until I panicked. Hours on my knees in the dark room, hands tied, not allowed to move. He never really raped me in the normal way. He just seemed to get off on the fear and the control. I begged him to stop. He didn't. The third day, I barely had any voice left. My body wouldn't cooperate. I remember thinking this was it, that I wasn't getting out of that apartment. He finally finished, looked at me on the floor like I was nothing, and said, "You worked well." Then he dragged me to the door, pushed me into the hallway with the money, and shut the door behind him. I couldn't stand right away. I just sat there against the wall, shaking. A cleaning lady came down the corridor a little while later. She saw me and her face changed. She didn't ask many questions. She helped me up, got me to the elevator, and called an ambulance from her phone. I barely remember the ride to the hospital. Everything hurt. I was in and out of it, just grateful to be somewhere safe. Lying in that hospital bed, looking at the white ceiling, I knew I was done. The money was still in my bag, but it didn't matter anymore. I couldn't go back. Not even one more time. The illusion that I was in control, that it was just work, that I could protect myself, was completely gone. This life had finally shown me what it really was, and I couldn't pretend anymore. I had to find a way out. I left the hospital and went straight to my aunt's place to get my things. I told her I was done. She tried to talk me out of it at first, saying I was overreacting, that I could take a break and go back slower. When I wouldn't listen, she got angry, said I was ungrateful after everything she'd done for me. That was the last real conversation we had. I changed my number that same week and moved to a small room in the suburbs, far from the areas I used to work in. Leaving wasn't one decision. It was 100 small ones, and I failed at a lot of them. The first month I barely left my room. Nightmares came every night. I'd wake up sweating, thinking I was still in that apartment. Panic attacks hit me in the middle of the day, out of nowhere. I'd be buying vegetables and suddenly feel like I couldn't breathe. Money ran out fast. I sold most of the nice clothes and bags I'd collected just to eat. I tried normal jobs. First a cashier at a small supermarket, but I couldn't handle the way some male customers looked at me. I'd get too anxious and quit. Then a cleaning job. That lasted longer, but the pay was terrible and my body was still recovering. It took almost a year before I found steady work as a seamstress in a tiny workshop. I sit at a machine all day fixing clothes for local shops. The pay is small, but it's honest. No one touches me. No one expects anything but the work. The loneliness was probably the hardest part. I had no one. My family still doesn't know the full truth. I send less money now, but I send what I can. My aunt tried reaching me through other people a couple times, asking me to come back, saying there were clients who missed me. I blocked every number. There were nights I almost picked up the phone because the old life felt familiar and this new one felt empty. Learning to trust people again is still hard. I keep most folks at a distance. I visit the temple sometimes, not because I suddenly became religious, but because sitting there quietly helps me feel less broken. I started helping 2 young girls who came from villages like mine. They work nearby, and I talk to them when I can. I tell them to be careful, to learn a real skill, to never trust easy money. I don't know if it makes a difference, but I have to try. Even now, years later, some things haven't healed. I still can't forgive my aunt. She knew what she was sending me into. I regret not running back to the village when I still had the chance, before everything got so complicated. Part of me still feels dirty sometimes, like no matter how much time passes, that chapter left a mark I can't wash off. I live very simply. Small room, simple food, early nights. It's quiet, sometimes too quiet. My name is Priya Sharma. I'm 27 years old. I survived something that almost killed me, not all at once, but slowly, day after day. I was taught that a woman should endure, and I endured until I realized that endurance could kill me. So I stopped. That's all I have to say.